The garage that made millions on TV is now a graveyard of broken dreams. The star who built the empire faced a $6 million lawsuit from his own partners. His right-hand man collapsed under pressure, racking up $750,000 in debt after a mysterious fire destroyed everything. The woman who ran the front desk vanished without explanation, hiding a devastating diagnosis. One painter left so quietly that fans didn't notice for months. Another had his shop sold out from under him by the very person he trusted. What looked like success on screen was actually a slow-motion disaster behind the scenes. Richard Rawlings. Richard Rawlings didn't start with fame. He built it piece by piece, engine by engine. Back in 2002, when he first created Gas Monkey Garage, it was just another custom shop in Texas. But a decade later, things exploded. In 2012, Fast and Loud launched on Discovery Channel and changed everything. Rawlings wasn't just fixing up cars anymore. He was building a brand, and it was loud, fast, and everywhere. The show ran for over 10 years, pulling in millions of viewers and turning him into a celebrity entrepreneur. But behind the burnout smoke and roaring engines, his world wasn't always stable. In 2018, trouble came from inside his own camp. His partners at Gas Monkey Bar and Grill hit him with a $6 million lawsuit, claiming he'd defamed them and broken their contract. The case dragged on for years. While the cameras kept rolling, legal documents piled up. Rawlings didn't back down. He filed a countersuit of his own, accusing them of misusing the Gas Monkey name. By August 2021, both sides called it quits. The place got rebranded as Amplified Live. The name Gas Monkey vanished from the venue, and just like that, part of his empire was gone. But Rawlings didn't slow down. By 2025, his net worth hovered around $25 million. Not just from the garage or the TV checks. He had other businesses, Gas Monkey Sturgis up in South Dakota and the newly launched Gas Monkey Ice House, which opened in May 2025 just north of Dallas. The garage still builds wild custom cars. His YouTube channel posts new content every week. Fans are still watching, still buying, still cheering. In 2024, he made headlines again, dropping about $100,000 at Barrett-Jackson for a custom De Tomaso Pantera built by the Ring brothers. That car wasn't just expensive, it was rare, and it proved Rawlings was still deep in the high-dollar car game. He wasn't just a brand. He was still a buyer, still a builder, still obsessed with machines that make noise and headlines. But the ride hasn't been smooth. There were flops. One episode showed him lose money when a restored C10 pickup sold for less than what he put into it. His face said it all. Shock, disappointment, maybe even a little regret. There have been fights over trademarks, accusations of counterfeit merch, and whispers about how he's treated some of his business partners. The controversies haven't stopped, but neither has he. Aaron Kaufman. He never wanted to be famous. Aaron Kaufman just wanted to build things that worked. But when Fast and Loud exploded onto TV screens, he became more than just a mechanic. He became the beard behind the brand, the quiet storm under Gas Monkey Garage. Fans loved him for how calm he stayed while chaos exploded around him. But that calm was cracking. From the first season, they ran him like a machine. 12 cars in 24 weeks, 110 hours a week. Sometimes he fell asleep inside the cars he was building, and they didn't even cut the cameras. He was commuting 14 hours a week, then walking into a shop full of screaming sparks, pressure, and deadlines. The audience saw cool cars and slow-motion shots. He saw panic attacks and breakdowns. He had surgery once and came back to shoot 3 days later. That wasn't dedication. That was survival. The worst came in 2017. They were doing a rushed truck build. Aaron flagged real safety problems. But Richard Rawlings wanted drama. He pushed for a risky test drive anyway. The truck nearly fell apart. Aaron watched it happen and knew exactly what could have gone wrong. It wasn't just about cars anymore. It was about risking lives for TV. That was it for him. That was the moment he realized he didn't own anything about the show. Not the builds, not the brand, not even his image. He said later it felt like a creative prison. He'd spent years making it look real, but nothing was his. The audience thought he was raking in millions, but the reality was $35,000 per episode. And while fans were buying merch with his face on it, he was secretly training his replacement. In March 2017, he posted one quiet message on Facebook. He was leaving Gas Monkey, just like that. Fans were stunned, but behind the scenes, he'd already checked out. He said the last 5 years felt like 20. What followed was not a clean break. It was a collapse. Lawsuits hit. He faced medical issues. His finances buckled. He opened a new shop called Arclight Fabrication, hoping to build something honest this time. But then a fire hit. Faulty wiring. He'd done it himself to save money. He had to sell his 1963 Ford Falcon just to cover payroll. He fell into $750,000 of debt. But somehow, he didn't stop. A partner stepped in with a $400,000 investment. That kept the doors open, kept the lights on, kept the dream alive. Christy Brimberry stepped into Gas Monkey Garage in 2012 because her husband happened to be Richard Rawlings' hairstylist. That random connection changed everything. Richard didn't need another mechanic. He needed someone who could tame chaos, handle invoices, track down parts, manage salaries, push paperwork, calm storms, and keep the entire operation from exploding. Christy said yes, sat at that front desk, and became the anchor in a shop full of oil, fire, and testosterone. She didn't just sit behind a screen. Christy ran the show. She juggled build schedules, kept the books straight, tracked every car deal Rawlings made, and locked horns with anyone who got in her way. In a place where yelling was common and deadlines were deadly, she held her ground. She filmed 55 episodes of Fast and Loud, and while most fans came for the cars, many stayed for Christy's sharp one-liners and raised eyebrows. She wasn't background, she was backbone. But then, without warning, she disappeared. Fans noticed. The front office was quiet. The Instagram posts slowed down. Nobody knew why until 2017, when the truth came out. In 2016, right in the middle of filming, Christy was hit with something that shook her entire life: thyroid cancer. The diagnosis came fast. So did the surgery. Doctors had to perform an emergency procedure that risked damaging her vocal cords, leaving her barely able to speak for weeks. After that came radiation, and after that, silence. She didn't post. She didn't show up. She fought the battle in private. By the time fans learned what happened, she was already deep in recovery. The hair started coming back. So did her voice. And by the end of 2021, Christy was declared cancer-free. But the garage chapter was over. She never returned to Gas Monkey, not in the same way. The show moved on without her, but she didn't just fade out. She flipped the script. She leaned into something completely different. With her husband Darren Brimberry by her side, she built an entirely new online presence. She grew a following of over 1 million, not because of engines or auctions, but because people saw the same fire she showed in the garage, this time in yoga pants or airport selfies. Sue Martin. For over 20 years, Sue Martin was quietly running ASM Auto Upholstery in Dallas, long before anyone from TV ever walked through her doors. She built her name the old-fashioned way, stitch by stitch, build by build, earning a local reputation for turning broken-down seats into showpieces. Whether it was a rusted-out Cadillac or a fresh, high-end build, Sue delivered every time. Her name started floating around the Dallas car scene, passed between gearheads and restorers like a trusted secret. That's how Richard Rawlings heard of her. In 2012, he showed up needing a job done fast. She didn't just take it, she nailed it. And when the Fast and Loud crew saw her work, they knew they had something rare. What made Sue stand out wasn't just her craft. It was the way she talked. No sugarcoating, no fake TV smile, just grit, wit, and a signature line that stuck with viewers from the first time they heard it. "Why you bring me junk?" It wasn't written by a producer. It was just Sue being Sue, and that made it unforgettable. She wasn't playing a character. She was doing her job on camera the same way she had off camera. Late nights, long hours, sometimes sleeping in her shop just to make deadlines. What fans never saw was how often she had to pause real work just so the crew could move lights around or make her repeat something for the camera. She didn't like that part, but she never let it mess with the quality. Her standards didn't drop. They only got sharper. But not everything behind the scenes stayed friendly. Especially when a big job went sideways in Season 3, not because of her work, but because of what others at the garage messed up. Sue didn't take the fall, and she didn't pretend to be okay with it. Her on-camera tension with the crew wasn't just for drama, it was real. She later admitted she wasn't a fan of many of the gas monkey mechanics. She had good reason. To her, this wasn't just a TV show. It was her name, her shop, her reputation. Every stitch had to be right. Every job had to be clean. So when others made mistakes that reflected on her, she didn't smile through it. She pushed back. The show never gave her a grand exit. There was no official send-off. But people close to the production said it came down to money. Sue wasn't a salaried cast member. She was a business owner. And when it stopped making financial sense to keep paying her what she was worth, Gas Monkey stopped calling. That didn't slow her down. After the show, her shop kept growing. Her phone kept ringing. Her name carried more weight than ever. People still wanted Sue Martin, not because she was on TV, but because she never let being on TV change the way she worked. Mike Coy was just 15 when he first got grease under his fingernails, working on cars not for fame, but because he couldn't imagine doing anything else. That was 1992. By the time he turned 20, he was running his own hot rod shop in Texas, TX Street Rods, where every paint job had to be perfect, or it didn't leave the shop. People noticed. Magazines ran features. He won SEMA awards. That's how Richard Rawlings found him. In 2014, Rawlings brought Coy into Gas Monkey Garage. Fast and Loud was already a hit on Discovery, but once Coy's steady hands started laying down color, the cars changed. They stopped just being fast. They started looking expensive. Coy's paint became the show's visual signature. That 49 Chevy 3100, it sold for six figures and doubled in value later. That kind of craftsmanship couldn't be faked, and fans knew it. Between 2014 and 2017, Coy touched nearly every car that rolled out of the shop. But he wasn't just making cars shine. He was becoming part of a brand. And that brand had rules. Coy's exit in 2017 caught fans off guard. The show was peaking with over 130 episodes on air. But what no one saw was the pressure behind the scenes. Discovery's contracts were airtight. Coy later admitted he couldn't even post car photos on his own social media without approval. His work, his name, his tools, everything tied to studio permissions. For someone who built his career in an independent shop, it was like being boxed in. Then came the silence. He left the spotlight and faced a wave of personal storms. He got divorced. His health took a hit. His weight dropped so noticeably that fans started whispering about cancer. He never confirmed anything publicly, and maybe that was the point. He didn't want to explain. He moved to El Paso, far from the Dallas glitz, and started from scratch. No press, no posts, just paint and quiet. For years, that was all. And then, out of nowhere, came 2024. Netflix dropped a new series called Tex-Mex Motors. At the center of it? Mike Coy. Same hands, same grit, but no fake drama. It was all about real builds, border town stories, and authentic car culture. The show shot to the top 10 in the US and UK. People didn't just remember him, they missed him. Mathieu. When Fast and Loud kicked off in 2012, most people saw fast cars, loud engines, and a wild garage full of drama. But under all that noise, there was a quiet guy with a paint gun in his hand and precision in his eyes. Mathieu didn't shout to get attention. He didn't need to. His work spoke louder than any revving engine. From the very beginning, it was clear. If Gas Monkey Garage was going to shine, it would be through the glossy, flawless finishes he sprayed with calm confidence. And long before TV cameras ever showed up, KC was already deep in this world. Born and raised in Crowley, Texas, he started painting cars at just 12 years old, inside his dad's auto shop. While other kids were gaming or hanging out, he was learning how to lay down perfect lines under fluorescent lights and Texas heat. That early grind stayed with him. By the time Richard Rawlings came storming in with big dreams, big money, and bigger cameras, KC had already built a name for himself. He owned KC's paint shop and had earned a reputation in Texas for paint jobs so clean they almost looked fake. Richard wasn't stupid. He needed someone like that. So when Fast and Loud began, KC was brought in not just to paint, but to elevate everything. He quickly moved from being a guest painter to the main guy everyone trusted with the final touch. And as the show got bigger, so did the pressure. People started lining up outside the garage during their lunch breaks. KC could barely leave for errands without getting pulled into fan photos. The builds got crazier. The deadlines got tighter. The cameras never stopped rolling. What was once a love for craft started turning into a non-stop sprint with no breathing room. KC never chased fame, and when the spotlight got too hot, he stepped away. In October 2015, with no dramatic scene, no yelling match, and no teary goodbyes, he just walked. Not out of anger, but out of exhaustion. 3.5 years of constant filming had drained him. He wanted peace. He wanted time with his family. He wanted to paint on his own terms again. After the exit, most reality stars would disappear. KC didn't. He just shifted focus. He restarted KC's paint shop, moved into a bigger industrial space, and slowly built a new team. It wasn't just him in a corner with a spray gun anymore. His shop grew to include 9 employees, handling not just the painting, but the books, the fabrication, the branding. His shop began taking on full restorations, custom builds, and hot rod projects that weren't for TV but for real clients. Some years, they'd do a dozen service projects, along with 2 or 3 full builds from the ground up. And every single one was done right. Not fast for ratings, but carefully, beautifully. Scott McMillan. Scott McMillan didn't step into the spotlight by choice. In 2012, when Fast and Loud was gaining steam, he was brought in because of his long-standing connection to Kaufman, not Richard Rawlings. In fact, Scott made it clear from the start. He wasn't there for Richard. He told Aaron point-blank, "I don't work for Richard, I work for you." A comment that didn't just ruffle feathers, It cracked the foundation. His bluntness was rare in the overly polished world of TV, and it gave fans a glimpse of what was brewing beneath the surface. When the cameras rolled on Misfit Garage in 2014, that tension turned into fire. Misfit Garage was supposed to be a bold rebellion. Scott joined forces with Tom Smith and Jordan Butler, both fired from Gas Monkey Garage, and together they launched Fired Up Garage as the centerpiece of the spin-off. It was hyped as a direct challenge to Rawlings's empire, and fans couldn't look away. But off-camera, it wasn't just about cars. It was about control, vision, and personality clashes. Scott only made it through one season. In 2015, just as the show was picking up momentum, a brutal argument over how to restore a 1967 Chevy Camaro boiled over. It wasn't a minor disagreement. It was enough to make both Scott and fellow builder Austin walk away mid-season. No warning, no goodbyes, just gone. Their exit forced the production team into chaos, scrambling to fill gaps while viewers were left shocked. Even after the cameras stopped following him, Scott didn't fade away. He went back to his roots, real craftsmanship, away from staged drama. He rebuilt his name at Scott Rod's Garage in Fort Worth, Texas. There, he focused on custom builds that were as wild as they were intricate. Trucks, hot rods, even a full-blown pirate ship. But the storm from Fired Up Garage never fully cleared. The shop that was meant to be a rebellious underdog kept losing partners, one by one. Fans who once rooted for the spin-off started questioning if it had any staying power. Still, Scott kept going. No big sponsors, no flashy brand deals, just his own two hands and a passion for building. He didn't chase reality fame. He walked out of it. And few who watched him forget how fast everything unraveled. Jason Akre. Jason Akre's story ran on a completely different track. He wasn't chasing ratings or rivalries. He was chasing perfection. Long before Fast and Loud hit its stride, Jason was already deep into the world of high-end restorations. He wasn't flashy, didn't seek screen time, and didn't need a catchphrase. But when rare builds came through Gas Monkey Garage, especially vintage Mustangs and Shelbys, it was often Jason who made sure every nut and bolt lined up with history. One of his most famous projects was the 1966 Shelby GT350, serial number 001. It didn't just turn heads, it won the Triple Crown of Classic Car Awards, including the Shelby American Automobile Club Premier Award and the MCA Gold Cup. That car even made it to Pebble Beach in 2012, where only the best of the best are allowed to stand on the lawn. What made Jason different was his obsession with accuracy. While others raced to meet production deadlines or create TV-worthy drama, Jason could spend an entire day on one panel. He didn't believe in cutting corners. He worked from old manuals, factory blueprints, and stories passed down by restoration legends like John Brown and Bob Gaines. By the time Fast and Loud ended in 2020, Jason had already made his exit quietly. No farewell episode, no reunion, just silence. He turned down brand deals, YouTube offers, and even merch drops. Instead, he went back to Oklahoma, where he now runs a private shop. He takes on just 1 or 2 builds a year, mostly for elite collectors who know his name through word of mouth. He's known to redo entire sections of a car because the paint reflection wasn't quite right, even if it had passed inspection. His shop doesn't have a big sign out front, there's no Instagram tour, but inside, rare Corvettes, Shelbys, and European classics are being brought back to life, piece by piece, with the kind of care you just don't see anymore. Jason doesn't need a platform. His work is the platform. Dwayne Fipps. Dwayne Fipps had grease under his nails and legacy in his hands. Long before the world knew about Gas Monkey, Before the cameras came crashing into Dallas with Fast and Loud, there was already a mechanic who could take apart your car blindfolded and put it back together with muscle memory. Dwayne didn't learn it from TV. He learned it from Larry Fipps, his father, who started Fipps Automotive in 1973, back when fixing cars was less about fame and more about doing it right. The shop wasn't just a business. For over 40 years, it stood like a stubborn old tree in the middle of changing seasons. Regular folks brought in their old trucks. Gearheads came with custom builds. Even the crew from next door strolled in, because in 2002, when Richard Rawlings set up Gas Monkey Garage right beside it, Dwayne was the first to welcome him. They shook hands, not like strangers, like neighbors who knew they were about to build something big. From that day, the two shops ran like brothers. Dwayne handled the quick flips, the gritty, fast jobs that paid the bills. Gas Monkey chased the flashier builds made for cameras. But behind every polished reveal, there was Dwayne somewhere in the background, tightening bolts, patching panels, getting it done. Then came the pain. In 2004, Larry Fipps passed away after a long illness. The grief wasn't loud. It was the kind that lingers in the air, settles into tools, and makes the silence in a garage feel heavier. Dwayne didn't stop. He kept the lights on, kept the doors open, kept his father's name alive. But the industry was changing. Gas Monkey was turning into a brand. Discovery Channel was circling like a hawk, ready to turn engines into entertainment. And in 2014, something happened that left a scar no wrench could fix. After more than 10 years running the show, Dwayne closed Fipps Automotive. He didn't retire. He didn't burn out. He sold it to Rawlings. Russell J. Holmes. When Russell J. Holmes showed up on Fast and Loud in 2019, most viewers didn't know what to make of him. He didn't arrive with a welding torch or years of engine tuning experience. He came in with a different kind of firepower. 2 decades of construction work, a history of running crews with over 100 workers, and a brain wired for fixing chaos. His job wasn't to restore muscle cars, it was to rebuild wrecked garages, the kind buried under rusted machines, leaking barrels, and duct-taped dreams. And when the producers needed someone to tame the madness for garage rehab, Russell didn't walk, he ran. There were no pre-made blueprints, no scripted reveals. When he entered a shop, he didn't even know where he was going to start. He once said, "I don't know what I'm doing until the minute I step my foot in that shop." That wasn't bravado. That was muscle memory built from years of walking into disaster zones, sometimes even as a volunteer EMT captain, where hesitation could cost lives. He'd look at the cracked walls, the broken lifts, the chemical spills, and then decide, this wall's coming down, the air compressor goes there, the lift goes here. It wasn't just renovation, it was triage. People whispered that he was just a stand-in for Kaufman, the bearded genius who'd helped turn Gas Monkey Garage into a TV empire. But Russell was never a replacement. He was a different tool in the toolbox, and oddly enough, he was already a fan of Richard Rawlings before the cameras ever rolled. He saw a post from Rawlings' team on Facebook asking for a construction expert. He thought the beard might hold him back, but the producers told him to keep it. That scruffy look became part of the package. He wasn't pretending. That was him. When garage rehab ended, Russell didn't fade away. He went deeper. On Renovation Impossible, he tackled broken homes, not just broken shops. Budgets were brutal, under $50,000 in some cases, but he still found ways to bring dignity back to people's spaces. He worked on Hometown Kickstart, too, using that same no-nonsense skill set to revive small businesses and community buildings. He didn't just build walls and pour concrete. He gave people a reason to believe their lives could function again.